Dark and mysterious reading. Heavy rain pounded against the window. Michael Wallace sat behind his desk, staring at a case file that had stolen his sleep for 2 weeks. His cold cup of coffee sat untouched on the desk. It was 3:30 in the morning, and the only sounds in the Baltimore Police Department were the rain and the ticking of an old wall clock. Michael was 42 years old. His gray hair, which had turned white prematurely, bore witness to years of chasing criminals and sleepless nights. His dark blue eyes were tired, but they still held that spark of curiosity that had made him one of the city's best detectives. He spread the crime scene photos one by one across his desk. 5 victims in 2 weeks. 5 young women whose only common feature was their long red hair. All of them had been killed the same way. Strangled with a white silk handkerchief, followed by a deep wound on the left cheek, made with a sharp knife. "Why the left cheek?" Michael muttered under his breath. The next morning, Michael sat in a briefing with Sergeant Harrison. Harrison was a burly man with a thick mustache and 20 years of experience in the department. "Wallace, this case is slipping away from us," Harrison said, slamming the file on the desk. "The media asks questions every day. The mayor is applying pressure. People are terrified." "I know, sir, but this killer is smart. No fingerprints, no DNA, no witnesses. It's like he's a ghost." "He's not a ghost, Wallace. He's human, and every human makes mistakes. Your job is to find that mistake." Michael left the department and headed to the last crime scene, a small apartment in the east side of the city. The 5th victim, Sarah Miller, 28 years old, an elementary school teacher, a woman the neighbors called the angel of the neighborhood. When he entered the apartment, the smell of blood still lingered in the air. The small living room was neat and tidy. There were no signs of a struggle. Sarah must have known her killer, or at least trusted him. Michael looked at the photos on the wall. Sarah stood with a bright smile beside her students. Her red hair shone like flames under the sunlight. "Red hair," Michael whispered. "Why do they all have red hair?" That night, Michael was in the police department archives. He was digging through hundreds of old case files. If this killer had a pattern, perhaps he had done something similar before. Hours passed. His eyes burned and his back ached. He was about to give up when his eye caught a file that had been closed 15 years ago. The Clark House Fire, 2008. He opened the file and began reading. A family of 5 had died in a house fire. Father, mother, and 3 daughters. Only one person survived, the family's son, George Clark, 12 years old. Michael looked at George's photo, a boy with dark eyes and a cold stare. Half of his face, his left cheek, had been burned in the fire, leaving a deep scar. Scarface, he held his breath. According to the file, the fire had been declared accidental, but there was something strange. George's mother had red hair, and all 3 of her daughters did too. Only George and his father had dark hair. Michael continued reading. George was sent to an orphanage after the fire. At 18, he left the system and disappeared. There was no trace of him in any system, no driver's license, no bank account, no address. It was as if he didn't exist. But Michael knew he existed, and he knew he was taking revenge. For what? That wasn't clear yet. But it had something to do with red hair. It had something to do with his mother. The next morning, Michael went to the orphanage where George had lived for years. It was an old gray building that had now been converted into a health center. But Michael managed to find the former director of the orphanage, an 80-year-old man named Robert Finch, who lived in a nursing home. "George Clark?" the old man repeated with a trembling voice. "Yeah, I remember. How could I forget?" Michael pulled his chair closer. "What do you remember about him?" The old man stared at the window. His eyes darkened. "That boy, there was something in him that scared people. He was quiet, never talked to anyone, but when he looked at you, it felt like he was passing right through you." "What did he say about his family?" The old man sighed. "Once, just once, he talked about his mother. He said his mother was an angel, said her hair was like fire, but then he said something strange." "What did he say?" "He said, 'Fire eats fire,' and then he laughed, a laugh that still comes to me in my dreams." Michael returned to the department and began researching the Clark family. The father, Richard Clark, was a high school teacher. The mother, Eleanor Clark, was a housewife. But the more he dug, the darker things he found. The old neighbors of the Clark house told different stories. Some said Eleanor was a kind woman, but others said something else. Sounds came from the house, shouting and screaming, sometimes the sound of children crying. Michael spoke with one of the old neighbors, Mrs. Peterson, a 75-year-old woman who still lived in the same neighborhood. "Eleanor Clark?" Mrs. Peterson shook her head. "That woman, her appearance was one thing, her reality was another. I once saw her beating George with a stick, hard, and you know what she was saying? She was saying, 'You're like your father, you're the devil.'" Michael clenched his fist. Why didn't anyone report it? "Back then, people didn't do that, Detective. Everyone did whatever they wanted in their own home." The puzzle pieces were coming together. George Clark, a boy who had been abused by his mother, a boy who survived the fire while his mother and sisters died. And now, at 27, he was killing women who looked like his mother. But one question remained. Was the fire really accidental? Michael returned to the fire case file. He read the fire department report again. The fire had started in the kitchen. Cause, gas leak and a lit candle. But one sentence caught his attention. The family's son, George Clark, was found in the backyard. His clothes were intact and showed no signs of attempting to escape the fire. Michael closed his eyes. This 12-year-old boy had started the fire himself. He had killed his family, and now, 15 years later, he was killing again. It was 8 o'clock at night when Michael's phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" Silence. Just the sound of breathing. "Who is this?" "Hello, Detective Wallace." A cold, calm voice came from the other end. "I heard you're looking for me." Michael's heart raced. "George? Bravo, you're smart. That's why I chose you." "Chose me? For what?" "For the game. I want someone who understands my story, someone who deserves it." Michael tried to stay calm. "Why are you doing this, George? These women are innocent." A long silence. "Innocent?" George's voice changed. Anger rippled through it. "My mother seemed innocent too. Her hair was like fire. Everyone thought she was an angel. But do you know what she did to me?" "I know, George. I know she hurt you. But you don't know.
George shouted. "Nobody knows. At night, she would lock me in the dark basement. She would burn my hands with cigarettes, and she always said, 'You don't deserve to live.'" Michael swallowed. "Then why are you killing women with red hair? They're not your mother." "But they remind me, Detective. Every time I see red hair, I see her face, I hear her voice, and the only way to silence it is to kill, to free them. I'm freeing them from this filthy world."
Dark and mysteriously, Michael knew he had to continue the conversation. Maybe he could find a trace of George's location. "George, listen. We can help you. You're sick. These things happened 20 years ago." 20 years, George laughed. "For you, it's been 20 years. For me, it's every day. Every night when I close my eyes, I see that scene. Fire everywhere, my sisters screaming, and my mother is looking at me, through the flames. And you know what I saw in her eyes?" "What?" "Surprise, like she couldn't believe it, like she didn't think I had the courage. But I did, Detective, I did." Michael clenched his fist on the desk. "So you admit you started the fire?" "Admit? No, it's an honor. The greatest thing I had ever done up to that point. I was freed, and now I'm freeing others too." The call ended. Michael immediately contacted the technical department, but he knew it was useless. George was smart. He used disposable phones and never called from the same location twice. But now Michael had something important: motive. George was killing because of his mother, because of years of abuse and torture, and his victims were symbols of his mother. The question was, how many more people were going to die? 2 days later, the 6th body was found, this time in a shopping center parking lot. Victim, Linda Morgan, 32 years old, lawyer, long red hair, white silk handkerchief around her neck, and a deep wound on her left cheek. But this time there was something different. On the parking lot wall, written in blood, was a message: "For you, Wallace, the game has just begun." Michael stood in front of the message. His hands trembled. This was no longer an ordinary case. George was playing directly with him, and he had pulled him into his dark world. That night, Michael went to his home, a small apartment on the 3rd floor of an old building. He lived alone. His wife, Sarah, had divorced him 5 years ago. She said she couldn't live with someone who spent more time with the dead than with the living. Michael downed his whiskey and stared at a photo on the table, a photo of Sarah. Her hair was red. His heart tightened. If George found out— No, he shouldn't think that. Sarah lived in another city. She was married. She had children. She was safe. But was she really safe? It was 2:30 in the morning when Michael heard a sound from the building's hallway. Footsteps, slow, heavy, getting closer. He grabbed his gun from the drawer and went behind the door. His heart was racing. He looked through the peephole. No one. But something was in front of the door. A white envelope. He carefully opened the door. The hallway was empty. He picked up the envelope and went inside. Inside the envelope was a photo of Sarah, his ex-wife. The photo was recent. Sarah was coming out of a coffee shop. On the back, in neat handwriting, was written, "Her hair is beautiful, isn't it?" Michael's hands trembled. George had found Sarah. Without a moment's delay, Michael picked up the phone and dialed Sarah's number. After a few rings, her sleepy voice answered. "Michael, it's 3 in the morning. What happened?"
Sarah, listen, you need to leave your house right now. Take the kids and go to a hotel, somewhere no one knows you. What? Are you being crazy? Sarah, please, a serial killer is after you. He knows who you are, he knows where you are. You have to go. A long silence. Michael, is this one of your cases? Yes, and this one is different. This one knows me, and he wants to hurt me through you.
An hour later, Jennifer was in Michael's apartment. Both sat on the couch, staring at Sarah's photo. "This guy is playing games," Jennifer said. "He wants to throw you off balance. He wants you to make a mistake." Michael nodded. "I know, but I can't take the risk. If anything happens to Sarah, I'll send protection for Sarah, but you need to focus on the case. That's the only way to stop him." Michael looked at the photo. "Jennifer, this guy, he killed his family at 12. He stayed hidden for 15 years, and now he's playing with me like a child plays with dolls. We're dealing with a monster." Jennifer put her hand on Michael's shoulder. "Then we need to hunt the monster." In the following days, Michael and Jennifer did everything they could to find a trace of George, but he was like a shadow. No trace, no sign, no mistake. The 7th victim was found, then the 8th, each time a message for Michael at the crime scene. "You're getting closer, Wallace. One more step. You've almost arrived." It was as if George was guiding him toward something or somewhere. A week after the photo of Sarah, Michael found another envelope at his door. This time, inside was a map of the forests surrounding the city. One point was marked with a red circle and a note. "Tomorrow night, come alone. I want to talk face to face. If you bring anyone, I'll kill Sarah." Michael stared at the map. He knew it was a trap, but he had no other choice. The next night, without telling anyone, Michael headed toward the marked point. He parked his car on a dirt road and walked toward the forest. The air was cold, and thick fog wound between the trees. With every step he took, the sound of his heart grew louder. His hand was on his gun. His eyes were fixed on the darkness. And then, from behind a tree, a voice came. "Welcome, Detective Wallace. I've been waiting for you." Michael turned, and for the first time, he saw the face of George, Scarface. A tall man with dark hair and eyes that gleamed like 2 pieces of black toll. Half of his face, his left cheek, was covered in burn scars, scars that were drawn across his skin like a map of hell. George smiled, a cold, lifeless smile. "We finally meet."